Welcome to Real Wealth Podcast. This is your host, Mike Proctor, sponsored by Leading Edge Financial Planning. I'm here with Kelly Arnold, and he is our Sedgwick County Clerk. He is the past Republican Party chair for the state of Kansas and was in the RNC. How many members was it again?
There's 168 members out in the RNC.
168 members. So he was in the top of party politics. And today he works on the elected government side and serves Sedgwick County. How many citizens are in Sedgwick County right now?
Over 500,000. I mean, the census, we just got numbers out this year, and we continue to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for your service. You've had a long career in politics. You've been in politics now for several decades.
I was going to say, you can put it right at about 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about it.
Just 20.
Yeah.
Wow. And I remember I met you because we used to go to church together at Pathway, and you were involved in the youth group when I was in high school.
I was able to participate and do that for, I think, about 11 years. And it was a great time in my life. You know, it's just, you have a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of cool kids and, you know, try to help guide them a little bit on the way. And hopefully they pick up a few things along the way, you know, as they grow up.
Well, I really appreciated you running around your red Mustang GT.
Still have it.
You still?
I got that car when I was a senior in high school. Yeah, I was the one that got the brand new GT for senior year, and it's a car that I love, and I plan on keeping it as long as I'm around.
That's funny. Was it a convertible?
No, it's just the hardtop GT.
Okay, yeah, but I do remember because I had a red Mustang GT, much older. I had a 86 50.
Yeah, I think I just rolled 44,000 miles on it to 95.
Oh, wow. You really don't drive it that much.
No.
Okay. So that's probably in great shape still.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, so today we're going to talk about a few different things. So at Leading Edge Financial Planning, we help people make wise financial decisions. And, it's always fun to learn from people with experience that have learned things over the years, have had diverse, interesting experiences that not everybody else has, and we get to learn from that. And hear more about, Kelly, your career and what got you into politics, maybe even how you started, not in politics. You have background in this industry, right?
I do. I was a financial advisor for about 3 to 5 years around that time. Yeah,
and you got started off basically straight out of college, right?
Right out of college. I had an internship my senior year of college at A.G. Edwards when it was A.G. Edwards downtown, and had a blast. They had a number of brokers there, and got to see what the day-to-day operations are for everybody there. And just like, I really enjoyed doing this. And I have a degree in both business management and business finance from Tabor College. And right out of the gate, I jumped in with what at the time was New England Financial, New England Securities.
Nice. And then there's also a family business in the mix too. I don't know how long that's been in the mix, but there's a bank involved, right?
Yeah. One of my grandpa was a banker back in the day. And so, our family, we've owned Hillsborough State Bank now since 1978, which actually was the year I was born. That's been a part of our family and the Hillsborough community. My dad's been the chairman of the board for several decades now, and I've been on that board for probably close to about 20 years as well. And we've enjoyed the bank because our focus is kind of a lot of the people in the community that maybe not can go to the big banks and get a loan for their business or for their farm, and we like to step in there and help them out wherever we can to build and grow that Hillsborough community.
And I can maybe just make a comment. I have clients that have benefited from you guys in that way too.
Good.
So there's a lot of gratuity around that.
Yeah.
Of the banker that is willing to take a look at something, be kind of flexible with it, use some common sense, make a good deal.
It is, and honestly, I wish all the regulations and weren't involved, because we'd be able to do a lot more good for people. It's kind of it's knowing your customer, knowing what they're capable of doing, and making sure that you don't give them too much where they drown in their business, which can sometimes happen. But being able to provide that resource for them, and obviously in a Hillsborough community, it's a lot of agriculture as well. and be able to provide that loan to them, even if they're a little bit more of a riskier loan. But if you know the client, you know the person, you know that they have a good ability to do repayment, then we like to help them.
That's the kind of freedom that you can bring to people, that they've got the means, they just need the way to get there.
Yeah.
On the money side.
Yep.
So you've got banking in your blood,
Banking in my blood. Yep.
and investments in your background,
Investments in my background.
and then you went into politics, and then eventually you got back into investments even within politics.
Correct.
With the Capers Fund.
I did. After about 3 years of being a financial advisor and loving it and enjoying it, I got introduced a little bit more to something I always had an interest in, and that was Republican Party politics. And ended up volunteering for the candidate that was running for governor at that time, and said, you know what, I'll take a few afternoons off from work and go help them. And after about a week, I was like, I want to do this full time. And so basically, I like to say I took a sabbatical from my work, being a financial advisor, and worked full time during that campaign until the election was over in November. And I think I was set. I was like, this is something that I really like to be involved in. Not only to get to meet a lot of great people, but you're working for a lot of great causes you believe in. And it's kind of like getting off the bench and getting put into the game to go out and trying to make an effective change in what's going on in our world. And I felt like at the time that's where I could make the best impact in our community, is getting involved in party politics and campaigns and trying to elect the right people that then can make the right decisions for our community. And so I was sold. It wasn't long until the next campaign came around, and candidates had already heard all about me and were offering me roles and positions, and I jumped on it and ended up going into it and getting full-time positions in politics, and decided to go ahead and step away from being a financial advisor. And it's something that I still truly do love doing, and I think I spoke to you earlier that I still pay attention to what's going on, what's going on in the financial world, what's going on with the markets, because politics is in every single aspect of your life. You can't not think of something without being able to sit there and figure out how politics affects that. And so, politics has a direct effect on the economy, on the financial markets, on all of that. And so I think they're kind of interwoven.
The price of milk and eggs and beef.
Oh, absolutely. And it's decisions, not everything, but decisions policymakers make have a direct effect on the prices of goods and services. It has an effect on the volatility of the stock market. You have a president comes out and says something at 2:30 in the afternoon, and by 3:00 the market's down 100 points.
Yeah. Ukraine's mine now.
Yes.
Oh, there goes the market.
Yeah. I mean, and it is, and it's that geopolitics that has an effect on a global level, and so yeah, I got into politics full time, and we can talk more later, but yeah, that actually did led into my role as being the chairman of the Capers, which is the Kansas public pension for the state of Kansas, ultimately managing about $26 billion.
And when you started, it was at 13
billion when I jumped in. So
doubled their money.
I feel pretty good about that. Really did double the money over 9 years, which is a good return, because it's not like a mutual fund where you're just putting money into an account and it grows. You have money coming in and money going out, because you have current employees that are paying into that, employers paying into that fund, but you have all those retirees that are pulling out at the same time. And so, it's trying to manage that and trying to guess at the future. What is that going to look like 10 years down the road? How many employees are going to be employed? How many are going to be on retirement? When do they die? You got to figure all those things in to figure out, how to make the right investments to make sure you meet the mark.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point with a pension, because accumulating money is entirely different than decumulating. The math gets really weird. When you accumulate, if you think about it this way, I'm just going here because it seems like a great teaching point. when you are putting money in, and it doesn't matter what the rates of return are. You can mix them all up while it's accumulating, and it doesn't matter. It's multiplication. You get to the same number no matter what. But as soon as you start taking income off of it, then sequence of return risk kicks in. Because if you have a big drop right off the bat, it can kill the returns for the life of the funds that are in there. So that's the challenge of a pension, which is really interesting. I guess I never really thought about it that way. But yeah, that is a very interesting challenge you had to overcome, because even right now, you got a wave of retirees exiting teaching.
Yeah, you do. And, it's finding that number right now. So we have the fund, as far as our calculations go, to say we're going to try to make 7.75%, I believe, is where we're at right now. Rate of return, that's our goal. And that's spread out over a 30-year time frame. We think that's what we can hit. And a lot of times you said, well, the S&P, that's supposed to have like 12% or whatever. It doesn't always work that way, because we have to have all these other factors into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess we manage people's retirement planning a lot like you'd manage pension, because you've got to match up the liabilities that are going to be placed on that account.
Yeah.
The obligations of the account, so that you know that the money's going to be there when you need it. So you don't have to, skip sleeping worrying about, am I going to have enough money?
Right.
Because that helps.
Right. As an individual is working, you can sit there and plan, okay, well, I need to have this much in retirement. You know that number because of what's on the backside of how much you're going to need after you start withdrawing from it. Ideally, you're not withdrawing money in that retirement until you hit, whatever age you decide to retire at. And then, okay, do I have enough on that downslope? Or does it make enough interest and rate of return that I'm only pulling so much amount that I'm not going to go below a certain number?
Yeah.
I just have to calculate that number for about 300,000 people.
Did it take long?
We have the easy button. No. We do hire a good amount of outside consultants to help do those calculations, actuarials. There's a lot that goes into it. Mm-hmm. You got to pay smart people.
Well, that's good. I'm glad there's smart people out there to pay.
There really is. So the Capers has a really good team up there, both on the investment side and then on customer service side. I mean, if you even think of it as a state agency, I don't even like to think of it as state agency because of the work that we do and really what we do. I think they're the best in the business for customer service and everything.
Capers got down to in the low 70s for the funding level.
Right.
80's good.
80's where you want to be at minimum. Yep.
Minimum. And as you were overcoming the challenge of getting it back up there, and now it's really close, and I think you made a comment before we were rolling that there's about to be about $1 billion go into it, and it'll be up over 80 now.
If the legislature passes the bill, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's great news if they can just get that done and get everything cruising great. But as you were working back from being too low, what was maybe an interesting lesson you learned along the way to get from there to where it is now?
Yeah, so it's a good question because there are a lot of lessons that go into this. It's part of it is making the right investments. I mean, that's a big chunk because we're not dealing with mutual funds here. We're talking about private equity, where you're going to get the right return. The other part that we have to deal with is it's a two-part system. It's dealing with the legislature too. So we're not just dealing with managing the money. We're dealing with the rules that play that govern us. And that's directly working with the legislature to try to do that because they ultimately set some of the numbers like that the employer pays, and with the employee. So there are statutes that say they're supposed to be this amount and this amount. Well, what's happened over the years during that time when the markets were not just the markets, but when everything was down, the state was not meeting their obligation. And hadn't for a long time. And so it's really what we did is we worked closely with the legislature, partnered with them to try to say, okay, what do we need to make some changes in to adjust it to get ourselves put on a better track than what we're on now. And that was done in several steps over the course of the time, usually dealing with shifting of money that was being put into the market. So or into the capers, if the legislature had kind of like a little extra cash that they found because of something, or their ending balance was better, they would have a bill that said that extra money goes into the capers, which was good. 2 times we went to the legislature and we bonded out money. We did a total of $1.5 billion in bonding, which is good for the capers employee, and the responsibility of paying is on the legislature. So we got the $1.5 billion and immediately put it to work into the market. And then over the course of the 20 to 30 years to pay that off, the legislature is the one that makes those monthly payments or quarterly payments, however they're set up. So having that partnership and having to work with the legislature was one of the key components as well.
Were there any surprise roadblocks you ran into?
Oh, there's always roadblocks. There's
any worth mentioning?
Well,
and maybe it doesn't help to mention them, but
when you're dealing with the government, with legislature, there's always different opinions on how to do things. So you will have some differences between the legislature wanting to exert their authority onto us a little bit on a few things, and us having to push back, saying no, we are on track. And when we try to get that, like we talked about that funding level hitting 80%. Well, we have a plan that has been in place for about 20 years that puts it at 100%, and that goes to 2033. And we've been on track on that, and we don't want to deviate yet. You can later, but not yet. And so the legislature some members of the legislature and the administration, Governor Kelly, really wanted us to deviate from that. Governor Kelly in her first budget tried to basically have us change those numbers that would take about $250 million at the time directly out of the funding for capers. But what it did long term by adjusting that would put a $4 billion liability back on the taxpayers, just to get that little money right there she could use on other projects. That was something we were adamantly against, because not so much worried about that $250 million that you would get initially, but that $4 billion of liability that was added to capers. And it's just like, talk about kicking a can down the road and telling your kids are going to have to pay for it. That's exactly what that plan was. And so we fought hard against that. Luckily, we have good support in the legislature to make sure that idea did not come to fruition. And so, now we're on track, and now we're hopefully by the end of the year going to be at that 80% funding. And what I will say is, for those that are members of capers, that your money is in good hands, and your retirement is on track.
Well, that's worth the entire podcast right
there. Yeah.
Wow.
It truly is.
That's great news, because everything else I've heard about capers is that it's underfunded, but it changes this year. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, not to get into too much of it, but, it goes back to the 1970s when the state of Kansas took over the pension for teachers. The teachers at the time had their own pension and was severely unfunded. And so the state of Kansas took that over, and we've really been literally playing catch up since then. Mm-hmm. And so, after, 50 years now, we finally are hitting the mark we need to.
Well, there's your overnight success, 50 years in the making.
Yep.
Awesome.
Got to be a part of it for 9.
Well, cool. That's a big win. Thank you. Appreciate all your work on that.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
Cool. And then you're currently the county clerk. What is that role? I mean, other than when people show up to jury duty and they get a check for like $15.32 signed by you, which we all really appreciate a lot. What do you do?
Yes. No. It's a very good question, because in county government, there's different roles. You have 5 elected commissioners that deal with certain aspects of county government. You also have 5 other electeds that deal with the other aspects. You can think of them maybe in silos here. So you have the district attorney that deals with the prosecution of criminals. You have the sheriff that, you typically would know what a sheriff is in charge of, is putting those criminals to give to the DA. The DA then prosecutes them. we have 3 other offices that run your core functions of government. You have the Register of Deeds, the county clerk, and the county treasurer. I like to say, if you use the example of if you buy a house, you take that deed for that house and you file it with the Register of Deeds. So they are the recorder of documents for the county. I would then be on the real estate side of things. I'm the person that goes and works that deed, puts in the new person's name that bought the house, gets rid of the old ones, make sure all the information's correct. And then I have 3 aspects of my office I do. So that's the real estate, and that's just barely even brushing the tip of the iceberg on what we do on real estate, besides doing all the real estate transactions in the county. Signing off and doing all the information for plats of, these new developments that people do. I'm involved in all that.
So the plats we're approving in Goddard, you're signing off on it first.
Oh, yep, last, yeah.
Oh,
but
last.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, but
okay.
yeah, so when a plat is done, we basically take that and put all the numbers, the information of all that. So assign all the information for all those different lots and that kind of thing for tax ID, PIN numbers, different stuff. And getting it into the system. The second part of what we do that also deals with real estate, but is property taxes. So in theory, I set everybody's property tax rate. But I like to sit there.
You're the guy.
I am the guy, but I'm not the guy you complain to. And this is why I have a perfect job as county clerk, because there's 2 factors that go into calculating property tax. Mm-hmm. One is the budget that's adopted by the governing body. So that can be the county, the city, a township. There's 103 governing body districts in Sedgwick County. That many.
Wow.
About 80 of them tax. So there's a whole lot of districts that actually have the authority to tax you. So I take those budgets and then I go over here and get the information from the appraiser, which March 1st is coming up. And that's when they will release the new valuations of your property. Well, the average home this year is going to get a 7% increase in valuation. So what we do is we calculate that mill levy. So if you have a problem with your property tax bill, I can go and look at it and be like, okay, well, what happened was, the city of, let's say, Wichita increased their budget, so it costs you more money. So you need to go talk to your city council member. He's the one that, increased your budget. Or I can sit there and say, well, the value of your property went up 20%. You need to go, appeal your appraisal for your property. Mm-hmm. So I get a point at where the problem is. It's not me. I just calculate it.
Right.
So I get to work with a lot of people in Sedgwick County government between our offices because we work together. And then ultimately, the information that is calculated in my office is given to the treasurer. The treasurer then sends what we call the Christmas cards to everybody, which is their tax bill. And so we work closely together with the Register of Deeds, the clerk, treasurer, the appraiser's office, and GIS. And so there's a lot of functions. It's interesting because we have different things every day that we deal with, new stuff that's always coming up. And then, of course, I do work with the county commission on a lot of their stuff as well.
All I heard was you send 500,000 Christmas cards.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then they, of course, have to pay by December 20th and second half in May.
Right. So anybody that thinks they send a lot of Christmas cards, go talk to Kelly first.
Right. Well, and not just, sending them, it's making sure you have perfect calculations of their tax bill. Because if you're off by just a little bit and their tax bill's, $20 more than what it's supposed to be, we got to go fix that.
Right. And it's probably not worth the $20 that you're going to get in the difference to fix it. To give it back or collect it or any of that.
No.
Very inefficient.
You do not want to make a mistake. And I can say, I haven't necessarily made a mistake. I've had other clerks around me make mistakes that affected my work. Oh. And so we've had to go fix it after they find out that they had an issue. Send letters to all these taxpayers and be like, so you're going to have to pay a little bit more on your next bill. And they're like, what?
And then the phones light up.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't envy your position with that. And I'm glad somebody does it.
Yeah. When you have good people working with you, it helps.
Yeah. Plus, if you have a sweet red Mustang to go home to, that helps too.
It does. It does.
So how does Kelly Arnold live his best life possible? What do you do for fun? What do you do? How do you enjoy yourself?
I like to hang out with a lot of friends. I like to travel. When I was on the RNC, travel was a big part of that. You get to go around the country, you get to meet with a lot of like-minded people, and you get to see a lot of the world. Um, and so one of my things is I like to travel. I've been to 49 out of 50 states. I was going to have 50, but then the pandemic hit, so I had to cancel my Alaskan cruise.
Oh,
Yeah, I was kind of bummed. Had that all set up, and nope, not this year. So I'll get that rescheduled. But I like to take a lot of time for myself whenever possible, and just kind of get away from whatever's going on here, and focus on other stuff. And I do that through through travel, through friends. Going to a lot of K-State football and basketball games.
oh yeah,
When they win.
right. So you've had family tickets for your entire life, right?
Yeah, no. I think my first football game, I was 6 months old, and yeah, our families had season tickets for both basketball and football for since I've been around, and so go every weekend, take advantage of it. I bleed purple, and that's just one of the things that we've done as a family that I've enjoyed, and then and I get to take a number of friends to games as well because I have a few extra tickets.
Very nice. And we joke a little bit, but politics is your wife.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been like that before. I really dove headfirst into politics when I got into it, and put all my time, energy, and everything about me into politics, good, bad, or otherwise. And you can say it's my wife because I've at the point in my life I've not been married and don't have kids, and that's kind of been really I kind of look back and I was like, well, I've really put the focus of everything I've done into that, in different roles. And so like I say, I look back and that's good, bad, and otherwise because of doing that, but that's been my life.
And it comes with a lot of trade-offs because a lot of people at your age have kids that are graduating high school or going to college where you don't even have to worry about that. Right. You said, what, a couple weeks ago you had a friend call you up and they said, we're going to the beach. You want to come? And 2 days later you're on a jet meeting them at the beach.
Yep. It's given me a lot of freedoms, as you can imagine. I don't have to check in and basically have to plan out a weekly schedule or when is our family vacation going to be. I don't have to do that. My days and my evenings and weekends and everything are what I decide them to be. Which has given me a lot of flexibility actually to do what I do. I mean, being involved in serving in our community, being able to attend a lot of the events and different things going on, and being available to meet with people. It's given me that benefit of being able to do that. So,
yeah, that's got to feel good to have that level of autonomy.
It does. There's, like I said, there's trade-offs. Don't have kids but I've been able to be involved with the youth. I mean, we talked earlier that I was
joked about how many kids games you show up to without your own kids.
Yeah. I mean, working in the church and working with the high school youth group for 11 years was a lot of fun. It's a big part of my life. And being able to kind of at least for 4 years out of a student's life, kind of walking with them and growing with them as they go through high school and then even into college and follow them as and now getting going to their weddings and now seeing them have kids and stuff like that. That's been a fun aspect of my life, being able to walk and journey with a number of students throughout the years as I was involved in that.
Yeah, and I think that plays into the topic of living your best life possible too, because what you sow ultimately is what you reap down the road too. I think back on when you were involved in like Bob Coates and Todd Carter and I guess that was kind of his role a bit, but especially for the guys who were just like straight up hanging out, volunteering with the youth group. Looking back on it, I'm like, man, that means a lot, because it's like it's important enough for these guys to invest their life in youth and encouraging growth from, a high school, middle school maybe, and you could be doing a lot of things, but you're sitting there hanging out with kids, getting exhausted on trips and whatever else came along with that.
Yeah, no, and it's true. It takes a lot of time and from the adult leaders that were part of that. I think students, you only see a certain aspect of that, and from the adult leader side, there's a whole nother world into that goes into the preparation we put into working with the youth, and those that made sacrifices. Unlike me, those that made sacrifices from their families that they have at home to go hang out with these students. I know a lot of leaders that had their own kids and had younger kids and taking time. And in my case, I probably spent 20 hours a week with the high school students working with them, not only whether it's in church but in their schools as well, and going and supporting them where I can. But ultimately, our goal is when we come along and walk alongside of them is, as I like to say, we're just trying to plant, a few seeds that, down the road they'll grow, and really be able to latch onto and help make sure at least their life as they, get into college and out of college and try to figure out what they want to do, have some foundations, some things to fall back on of stuff that they maybe picked up and learned from us as we worked with them.
Yeah. And it's really easy to underestimate or sell short what, how to say this, how important value transfer is. Because, when you're talking about middle class Wichita, a lot of times you have dual income households where both parents are very, very busy. They may have other siblings where there's a lot of competition for time. And from those kids' worldview, their family may not have, from their perspective, their family may not have as much time or value to transfer to them because everyone's kind of in the rat race doing their own thing. But when they show up to youth group or they see, a Kelly Arnold pouring into their life, and they're like, man, this guy's like county clerk, and they realize like, hey, he's kind of a big deal, but he's taking time to hang out with me. That does a level of building of self-esteem and just value transfer that really does a lot for people, for kids as they're developing, for self-esteem, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, we have kids from all walks of lives that were part of the youth group. I mean, you had some that were very stable homes where their parents were also involved. I mean, some of them could have been youth leaders as well with them, to ones that, are from, broken homes and really just don't have much support at home, period. I mean, like they are looking for an outlet, and, luckily we were able to be that for a lot of them. But, part of it is letting them see that, you have stable people that are going to be there for you, when you need it, and will help, invest in you and help guide you, and be there for you. And just, we got to be able to do that for a lot of them. So, you had a broad group of students, and so, we were able to, as you state, doing some good value transfer, from the knowledge and things that we've been able to do to try to, give some type of impression and support to the students.
Yeah. Yeah. And even as I think back, there's a lot of, that were in youth group in that period of time. And I know that they're still doing well because I can see them, through Facebook in a distance for the most part. But yeah, that whole team, whatever's working there works great. So can you tell me about maybe when you were at that maybe a critical junction in your life where, because you've had a few big career transitions, didn't you work on Pompeo's campaign for a while? And maybe it was simple because the opportunities that came up were really big. It was just hard to say no. But what was a point where you had a difficult decision to make on which way you're going to go?
Yeah.
And how'd you make it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, throughout, it's an ongoing process. You have a lot of opportunities that get presented to you. Somebody like me that's invested a lot into whether that's politics or to different aspects of my life. The more you invest into it, the more opportunity I think that comes out of that. And so, in the political field, the thing that I put so much into it, and people saw that around me. And so the opportunities, the doors opened. And so you had a lot of opportunities. I think one of the aspects is when I decided to run for county clerk and make that jump from helping campaigns, being into party politics, to saying, okay, I want to do a role in government service. And, it's going from that to going to a role where government service, where, more eyes are going to be on you rather than you in the background. You're going to be in the front. And what type of role I wanted to do. There's two different roles in government service in my view. One is the administrative side of things, where you're working with a team of people and trying to, problem solve and work with constituent services. The other is more of that the voting side, where you're making laws and passing the resolutions and that kind of stuff, where you're voting yes and no and doing some constituent work as well. And both are very, very important to each other. They both go hand in hand with what makes our government and everything work. And so I really decided that I wanted to choose that role of government service, the administrative side of things, because I like to work with teams. I like to work with people. I want to make sure that you get a good team of people that work well together to be able to solve problems. Whether that's a statutory due that we're required to do, or we have a citizen or a customer come in, with some issue, and it's like, okay, let's sit down and figure out what we need to do, and try to get something rectified for them. And so I like working in those teams. I like to be able to get that those accomplishments done, to be able to help people, and it's great at the end of the day when you've had somebody that's had, say, an issue with transferring a piece of property for like 2 years and have not been able to get it done. They finally come in, and you're able to figure out what the issue is and getting it fixed for them, and getting that name out of their one family member maybe to another family member or something like that. So, and so yeah, it's really the decision from doing that is kind of like it's a trajectory of where you're going to go in life. And okay, do I want to go this way? Because it's not just making a little commitment; you're making a big commitment. You're making 10-year plus possible commitment on doing that. And of course, in politics, it can change every 2 to 4 years depending on how long your service is. And if you don't do it right, you won't get reelected.
Yeah, and you've been in this role for how long now?
13 years now.
13 years.
So I've been reelected four times now.
And under both sides. I mean, we've seen it go from, been Republican and Democrat leadership, and you've been in it for 13 years.
Yep. Pretty consistent. It goes back to, as far as my reelection, it goes back to, doing things right, and having honorable and integrity. That's another aspect in politics.
That's not
you just
the
have
secret to keeping your nose clean, is it?
If we can talk to a few people about this. Yes. Yeah. And we can go down that route if you'd like to. There's,
we don't need to name any names. The perception of a politician is that you get the swamp smell all over you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know what game I'm in, if you want to call it that. And, it is something you have to have a lot of thicker skin in, both on the party politics side of things, where even in the Republican Party, I'm not necessarily taking knives in my back from Democrats. I'm taking them from other Republicans, right. And that kind of thing. But then on the government side, and when you're an elected official, you're taking it from both sides. And so yeah, it's and I know, the perception of, usually it's geared toward people in Washington D.C., more towards them of these people that are
those guys out there.
Yeah, those people, And I've had these discussions multiple times over the years of it, and it gets down to your integrity and how you are respected within your organization and publicly, and how you operate, and having good, strong moral and ethical background. And relying on that, and of course, on a biblical side of things, this is where being involved in the church and relying on your faith is a huge part of being able to maintain that, walking that line in when you have a lot of people attacking you and that kind of thing, and staying strong and making sure you continue to do the right thing no matter what.
Now, you say attacking you, but I can't remember any controversial news stories. And maybe I missed it, but I don't remember a lot of controversial stuff about you.
Not on government side. That's that would be more. And I'm talking more generically within politics.
Sure.
And
there's plenty of that.
And there is. On the politics side of things, there's always stuff that's going on, and you're getting into and that kind of stuff. And like I said, sometimes that's coming from Republicans, sometimes it's coming from the Democrat side of things.
It's coming from people.
Yeah, it is. It comes from people that have their own agendas and stuff like that may not agree with you.
Yeah. Well, getting in people's way is a good way to get stabbed in the back, I guess.
Yep. But I figured you always say if somebody's upset with something you do, you probably are doing something right because you're taking a stand and making a decision.
All right. So a couple big nuggets so far is teachers can sleep at night because Capers is going to be adequately funded this year.
We will be there for the foreseeable future.
And honor and integrity keeps your nose clean.
That it does.
It's the magic formula.
It is.
It's amazing.
It is. It truly is. I mean, when and there have been times over my life in different aspects of my role when something happens around you and because of the way you operate and who you are, you don't get accused of it, and they know exactly where the issue is. They don't blame you.
That's a good thing to sow is honor and integrity. If you're going to reap, people actually still trust you at the end of the day because they've seen you in all these other situations, how you behave, and they know what they get.
Yep. And if you ever break that trust, then you're in trouble.
That also plays really well if you're ever to come back around to this industry because we're in a trust industry here, and people got to be able to trust you.
I mean, when you're managing, people's nest eggs, so to say, you have to have that trust. I mean, if that trust isn't there, then that client's going to take their money and go somewhere else, and not only they will, but other people will find out about it. And so, you got to have good integrity. Integrity is something through your actions and through that trust. You just can't tell people you have integrity or you got this.
Mm-hmm.
It's through realistically years of operating, and how you operate as a person, as my perspective as a leader within, say, government or the Republican Party and politics. It's something that you earn and you get, and so it's impactful in being successful in life.
Do you have a story that maybe tested or put that really to the test where you felt like you were put in a difficult situation, but because of who you were, you just knew that this is the right thing to do, here's what I'm going to do, and it worked out?
I've been a treasurer for different organizations. I've been a treasurer for different candidates over time, and we've had somebody that's had done something within a, say, campaign or with I should say not a campaign, but with a political organization that basically was abusing the organization. And it's like one of those things where, you step up and, say, hey, this is going on. And, if you're the treasurer, you got to make sure the books are in order. And so it was very important for me and the organization to make sure, the books, here's the books, look at them. This is what we found, what's going on, and making sure that you I guess so everybody knows that. But if I didn't have some of the integrity and respect for the people around me, people could be looking at me. Well, is he involved in that? And that stuff like that never comes up because of the way I've always been, the way I've operated, and try to make sure I maintain that integrity and trust.
Yeah. I was in that position actually once. Played out a little different, and basically I resigned and wrote a big letter on, here's what I found. You guys need to deal with this.
Yeah.
And I can't be attached to it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is if they're not willing to, if there's not going to be a change or something done, then that's a step. That's what you have to do. I mean, you cannot be a part of an organization like that. And so luckily for us, the person that was violating our trust was left, resigned. So the rest of us didn't have to.
Good.
So, and we were able to build back the organization and continue to rebuild that organization going forward.
Well, that's a happy ending.
It was.
Very good. Any comments on fun stories from the Pompeo campaign? Or can you even talk about it?
I was just getting ready to say, I could probably come up with a few, but since Mr. Pompeo is, maybe looking to run for president, we'll not talk about stories.
Okay.
No, it was all fun and good, and really enjoyed all the time I've had working with Mike over the years. Being there, I got to know him early on before he even officially really was involved in politics. He was somebody that helped support the cause, but never had done something himself, and worked with him to run for actually state party chairman years ago, and helped him campaign. And it's interesting because it's a three-way race, and Mike came up short in that one. And so you had Chris Kobach, who became the chairman of the Republican Party, and the two, you can say, losers turned in and became congressmen. So, your default prize was, well, you won't be chairman of the Republican Party, but you can be a congressman. So
that's not so bad.
There you go. And so, so that there I get it. There's the closest story I'll tell you.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, no, it's Mike has got a really great leadership style. I've learned a lot working with him, just as in how he deals with situations and how he comes up with a decision and how to then execute that plan. I mean, he's got a lot of experience.
Yeah, when he came and talked to the Cuyahoga crowd this last fall, it was really interesting to hear him talk about their security measures and strategy with other countries, about how we use the United States checkbook and economy to keep the peace.
Yep.
So interesting. It's like, yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, at the end of the day, world leaders care about economics.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what you're seeing a little bit right now with Ukraine and Russia is, putting sanctions on stuff, and some of these countries, especially, smaller ones, the U.S. can crush you just based on our financial industry. We don't have to send any military over there.
That's a good way to be able to keep the peace, is greed, self-preservation through a very evolved economy.
Yeah. It's the safest way to do it.
Yeah.
So, but the federal government has a lot of tools at their disposal to help keep the peace around the world. So, and it was great to have Mike in a position, both, at a CIA, head of the CIA, but then actually as a State Department, as Secretary of State. The opportunities that he had it's just crazy to think about everything that he's been able to be a part of on that level. And somebody from Kansas, somebody that represents us. And today, you'll see him and he still talks about Kansas all the time in interviews. And, he's going to probably take a look to see about running for president. And I think he's going to get a lot of support if he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be pretty wild.
Yeah.
And let's say he wins, he'd be another Kansas president.
Yep.
And we just lost one recently. Right?
But Bob who ran for president.
Okay,
yeah.
Bob Dole ran for president.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And he was majority leader in the Senate for a long time. And I mean, he was, Kansas's son. I mean, he had such an impact, in the United States and Kansas and everything like that. So it was, it's interesting. When I was the chairman of the Republican Party, Bob Dole would call me every few months just to check in. I mean, he'd been living in the DC area for, the last 50 years, probably. But he still really wanted to know what's going on in the ground in Kansas and whether that's on the political side of things or just what's going on. And so he was always still really connected with everything back here and for being in your late 90s and still wanting to know what's going on. That was pretty impressive.
Well, Kelly, how can people get involved if they see an issue that they want to jump into, have an impact? What's the best practical way to get involved with politics?
Yeah. And I'll say this from a perspective of both Republican, Democrat, whatever party you want to be in. We have a lot of people that just, number one thing I hear from people is, I'm just sick and tired of what's going on, or I don't like this, or I'm watching this on TV or listening on radio. And, my spouse or whoever says, why don't you get off your couch and go do something about it? So the best way to do it is really reach out to whatever political party you are, and reach out to that party organization, because there's so many different avenues that we can take you and put you in on a track to get involved. And this year is a campaign election year. It's one of the best times to get involved, because it'll really open your eyes up to see what campaigns are about, what candidates are like in person. You'll be able to volunteer and work alongside of candidates. You'll get to see the party organization, the structure, see how things really are, because I'll tell you, a lot of people's perspective of how a candidate is, or how the party organization is, or something like that, is completely different than how they see it on TV or think it is. We're, at the end of the day, we're just people like you and I that are involved in our local politics, involved in our city. Well, we ultimately just want to make sure that we have, a better Wichita, or a better Sedgwick County, a better Kansas, a better America. We work in the respective areas of that are of interest to us, and try to push those or either part of that organization or policies in the direction we think they need to go. And same thing on the Democrat side and the Republican side. We want better. We want a better America. We just have two different visions and paths to get there.
So when somebody wants to get involved in politics and have some influence, maybe there's a problem they see or a cause they want to jump on. Is it more effective to break out the pitchforks, or maybe break out the lunch forks?
Well, realistically, the lunch forks. I mean, there's people will get into politics thinking that you can make an immediate change and a drastic change, and that's just not how it works. We're not built that way. It's really like baby step programs, and you'll see that in financial planning and financial stuff. Is there's baby step programs. You want to become a millionaire, you got to start doing all these things to get to that point. Well, same thing with if you want to change policy, or change the way something operates. It's these baby steps. You got to work towards it.
Yeah, I think just from the short time I've spent out on Goddard City Council, what's really effective is just building a relationship with people that are involved. It's like, hey, if there is something you want to see change, just bring it up. Because they may not even have realized that there's an issue, or that some level of ordinance or whatever is causing a problem. But if you bring it up, then they have a chance to kind of weigh it out, look at it, whatever.
There's a number of things you'll find out that, okay, yeah, there are a lot of people that are thinking the same thing on these issues. Or, maybe you are somebody that has a lot of knowledge because you've worked in that sector, you've worked in this business, and, you're able to, if you come down and join the party, you're able to then help educate the rest of us on, what the real true issues are, and help educate each other. And that's kind of why we have like monthly meetings, is because we bring in speakers, obviously to talk about different topics of current affairs and what's going on, to help educate people so they can make better decisions and help educate other people to make better decisions, and hopefully get everybody to vote for the right people. So,
right.
That will make those decisions.
Yeah. And democracy works.
And democracy works. Yep.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, Kelly, just to recap, honor and integrity is of utmost importance.
Yep.
In maintaining a great reputation.
Yep. Absolutely.
Capers is doing great.
Yep.
Thank you. Get involved.
Absolutely.
So for the stuff you care about, of course, especially if you're just on the couch.
Yeah.
Netflix will be there when you come back.
That is true. That is true.
And so just up and down, I have a ton of respect for you, because I have seen you over the last, well, let's see, what's that, about 20 years for me? Yeah.
It's probably been that.
Yeah, I've known you about 20 years now. Yeah. That's crazy.
I know.
Wow.
And I have a lot more gray hair than you.
You do. And I'm catching up, though.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. But yeah, I respect you obviously do have that honor integrity piece. You're super involved, and you do life in your own unique way. And thanks for coming on and sharing more about how you live your best life possible, the wise financial decisions you've had a lot of practice making for yourself and for 300,000 Kansans.
Yep.
And more. Actually, 500,000 now.
Yeah.
I guess it's bigger than Capers, isn't it? Sedgwick County.
Sedgwick County.
Yeah. Okay.
So, no, I appreciate it. It's been fun, and glad I could be a part of your podcast.
Thanks. So this is, again, Kelly Arnold, Sedgwick County Clerk, past Republican Party chair for the state of Kansas. And we help people make wise financial decisions. If you want to learn more about leading edge financial planning, go to www.leadingedgefp, as in financialplanning.com. And you can schedule a meeting right there if you're interested in learning more about how we help people make wise financial decisions.